Useful life. We discuss useful life in the context of the depreciable assets as one of the important characteristics of depreciable asset, that it has a limited useful life. And also when we discuss depreciation, we said that depreciation is a fair allocation of the charge of the depreciable asset over the useful life of that asset. Then what is the useful life? What do we mean by useful life? The standard says that useful life is either a period over which the depreciable asset is expected to be used by an enterprise, or the number of production or similar units expected to be obtained from the use of the asset by the enterprise. So it may be the case that I am relating useful life to the period over which the asset shall be used, or I may relate to useful life to the number of units that will be produced out of that asset over the period. So it may be in terms of the, say, 10 years is the useful life over which I will use this particular asset, or maybe 10 lakh units I'll produce out of this asset. So these are the two different criteria for the useful life. What are the determinants of useful life? The next question obvious is, how do I decide what is the useful life of particular asset? Very important, as we have seen in the definition of the depreciation itself, expected physical wear and tear of the asset. So in a normal scenario, because I am taking an example of a vehicle, because vehicle is very familiar rather than a plant and machinery for all of us. So if a vehicle I am buying, then what is an expected physical wear and tear of a particular vehicle? If I am going to drive a four-wheeler, say maybe daily 50 kilometers, then what is an expected life of that asset? Maybe based on the expert estimate, it's like 5 years, or maybe a 1 lakh kilometer or 5 lakh kilometers is the life of the asset. Then that is what is the period over which I will amortize the entire cost of that vehicle, and that will be my useful life. The second criteria which determines the expected useful life is obsolescence. We have already discussed in the case of depreciation definition how it shall be governing the depreciation. Then the same rules apply to the useful life also. If I am anticipating that the technology change or the market demand change are very fast, say in mobile technology, it's hardly a year. So maybe case that I may not amortize it more than over a year. I will keep the useful life only for 1 year or maybe maximum 2 years. Another criteria which governs this useful life determination is legal or other limits on the use of the assets. So there may be the case that based on certain contractual conditions or the legal or statutory conditions, say for example you have taken a building on lease, and the lease is for say 5 years. So whatever lease premium you might pay, that is only for the period of 5 years. So you may amortize that lease premium over the 5 years, because the useful life for you is only 5 years. So it may be the case that there are certain legal or the contractual conditions which govern the determination of the useful life. Then the question is, does the useful life remain constant over the period, or it has to be reviewed periodically? Yes, it has to be periodically reviewed, and the changes has to be done in the useful life, because it may be the case that I have assumed that I'll use a vehicle maybe for 30,000 kilometer per month, but when I actually start using the vehicle, I'm using it for say 50,000 or 60,000 kilometer, which is almost double the assumption. So in that case, it's an important that I take a stock of my assumption based on which the depreciation has been calculated, and revisit the useful life of the asset. Again, it may be legal or contractual changes which may force to review the useful life. And now we need to understand, whenever there is a change in the estimated useful life, it's a change in an accounting assumption, and it's not change in the accounting policy, or it's change in the accounting method. It's not change in the accounting policy, because the accounting policy is a depreciation accounting policy, and useful life is one of the assumption which goes into determination of the depreciation. So as we had seen in the accounting standard 1 that changes in the accounting policies, those may not be applicable here. We will see whenever there is a change in the method of the depreciation, what are the requirements, but whenever there is a change in estimated useful life, it shall be prospective, it shall not be retrospective. So earlier I had determined 30,000 per kilometer, based on which I might have provided a certain depreciation amount, and now I revise it to 60,000 kilometer, and then maybe my 5 years useful life gets reduced to 2.5 years. Then I will amortize the unamortized amount over the remaining useful life of the asset. So after 1 year, I change the useful life from 5 years to 2.5 years. Whatever is the unamortized amount, I will amortize only over the balance useful life, that is 1.5 years. Earlier it was 4 years. So it has to be a prospective change and not a retrospective change, if at all there is a change in the estimated useful life of the asset.